The Behemoth Brewing Company presents the Department of Conversation with Pat Brittenden. Behemoth, give me something hoppy.
As we jump into our Friday morning with our very, very special guest this morning, Sonia Gray. Sonia, good morning to you.
Kia ora, how you doing?
Kia ora. I'm doing bloody marvellous. Thanks for asking. And yourself?
Good. I can't believe it's Friday already, and I'm just looking at the to-do list, and it's just really long still, but that's the story of my life, everyone's life these days.
I like having things diarised. I like doing lists. It's not my natural inclination to do lists, but apparently I've been told by a personalities expert that I've apparently taught myself to write lists. I like having lists and I like ticking things off. What I don't like is what I've got at the moment, which is a book. It's not even a diary, with about 600 jobs in it, none of which are diarised. So in other words, they just have to be done at some stage. So I look at my Thursday next week and I go, oh, I've got nothing on. Oh, that could be a nice, what could I do with nothing on? And then I realise, well, I could probably cross off about 50 of those 600 things. So actually, I've got a very busy day when I've got nothing on. So I know what you're saying.
Yeah, see, I struggle with the whole diary thing, and I need to get better at it. I mean, I've got a list, but the list isn't really formatted very well.
Mm-hmm.
The list is sort of up here, which it shouldn't be. I don't know. I'm not the world's most organised person, which is why I'm always running around not achieving as much as I should.
Yeah, you seem very busy. I mean, we've been talking on Facebook for, I don't know, a couple of months. And I mean, I guess one of the reasons you're busy, and look, we can start off by bringing up a little image here, which I saw towards the end of last year, was the exciting opportunity you got over summer in New Zealand with Spark Sport taking on the cricket to let the world know about your cricket nerd status.
Cricket tragic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. The home season is finished now, which was arguably, I'd say, the Black Caps' greatest season at home ever.
I think you're probably right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was awesome to be part of it. I was only there for some of the T20s because I wasn't a part of the actual commentary squad as such. I'm sort of just a colour, I guess, person, doing little interviews here and there, and which is perfect for me because I love cricket, but I've never played it. So I'm not going to be able to take apart Steve Smith's grip or, comment on, Trent Bolt's reverse swing as opposed to his. I mean, I probably could a little bit, but not like those other guys can. I wouldn't feel confident. So it was nice just dipping in, meeting the players. They are all so lovely. So lovely that I was like, are they really this lovely, or is this just the act that they put on for, the media? But if Jeff Crow, ex-New Zealand player, was, he said, aren't they lovely, all the players? And I said, they are in a weird way, weirdly lovely. They go and make me cups of coffee and things.
Oh my goodness.
And he said well, not when they're playing. And I think like that, But he said, cricket is a game of failures. It's you have 10 failures for every success, and so it makes you really, really humble and really, really encouraged and grateful when someone appreciates what you do, which I do. I love what they do. So that was nice because I think we have this idea of national sports stars that they sort of, international sports stars that they put themselves on this pedestal, and us normal people aren't good enough to talk to them, and it couldn't be further from the truth.
Well, it would also be their shop front, wouldn't it? I mean, when they're in that, like I had Jimmy Neesham when the Black Caps were in Dunedin, and we had a bit of a chin wag, and he would come into the studio and he's talked to the media manager, and I said, because we're sponsored by Behemoth here, and I'm like, do you want a beer? Behemoth, give us a beer, and you want a beer? And he looked at the media manager and said, should I have a beer? And the media manager was real cool about it. He was like, well, you can take the shirt off and just wear your t-shirt and go for it. Yeah. Or when you're wearing the shirt, the Black Cap shirt, maybe not the best look. And so it was completely reasonable. There's no issues with it, but it was a shop front, and so he had a certain persona. And I would imagine, without them being fake, when they've got their shop front on, their England uniform or their New Zealand uniform, or when they're in that official capacity, they probably are. I'm not saying they're nicer like it's fake, but they're at work. And you treat your work colleagues very different from when you're grumpy with your husband and wife.
Yeah, I find sometimes in some of the older players maybe have a bit more of a shop front, but not that they're nice, that they just say the right things, like, you know, oh, it's all about the team and and, you know, they're very sort of like this. Whereas the younger guys coming through seem to be really open and honest and, I mean, this is generalization, but really accessible, I guess, you know, tell you how they're really feeling, which is so nice, because one of the things I love about cricket is, obviously it's, you know, a great cover drive is wonderful to watch or whatever, but it must take so much courage to play that bloody sport and to, you know, face a Jofra Archer or I don't know, and to be, you know, have those periods out of form, say that Martin Guptill did, where, you know, the media and the public are like, oh, drop it, you know, it just, to have to keep getting up, and I admire that courage, and I love it when they are okay about expressing their vulnerabilities and their, you know.
I think Marty Guptill's a perfect example. You were saying, you know, that it's a game of losses. I mean, I was one who was looking at Finn Allen through that domestic season going, holy crap, this is the you know, this is the next best thing, biggest thing in New Zealand for you non-cricket tragics opening T20 for Wellington, and thinking, I love Marty Guptill. I love it. There was my most exciting time watching cricket was Marty Guptill and Jesse Ryder opening. You know, because you just never knew what was going to happen. You never knew where the ball was going to go. That was, I always describe that as that's the most exciting sport to watch, would be Marty Guptill and Jesse Ryder opening, or watching Christian.
Throw Bez McCullum in there.
Oh, I just, there was something about Jesse Ryder. It was a bit different for me. I mean, I'm not, no criticism of anybody else.
I will agree with you, because I just loved that the Bez was just sort of like, I'm coming in, I'm just working it. But Jesse, I think, you know, I'm digressing a little bit, but he was such a loss. I think, you know, we just didn't see the best of him. You know, he's one that his potential was so great, and other things got in the way. And that, you know, that's a prime example of how tough it is on you mentally, that game. And, you know, it's not all just about being a great player. In fact, I said to Ish Sodhi, you know, 80% of this game is mental, isn't it? And he said, no, Sonia, he said 90%.
Right, wow.
So, yeah, he said and he said, you're so hard on yourself.
God. That's a bit of a Kiwism. Just to finish off the thing about Finn Allen, I was like, I love Marty Guptill. I love watching him. But I wasn't thinking, oh, get rid of the loser. I was thinking, you know, it's probably time for Finn to have a crack. But then Marty Guptill came back in these series and, like, was one of the greatest in the world again, went through that time of loss, and now he would be the first person you'd pick when you're picking a T20 team today because of the current form. Yeah.
And he hits the ball like no one else. But that's a great example of how we as fans need to trust the coach, and that, you know, they know how he's hitting in the nets, and they know it's just a matter of time before he's just back in form. And I was reading something, I think it was Virat Kohli saying, when you're out of form, sometimes it can just be one good shot or something that, you know, pops into your head, or it doesn't have to be, I've played a good innings, now I'm back in form. It can just be bang, I'm back again, I'm back in the zone. Well, you know what they say, form is time, no, what is it? Form is temporary, class is timeless.
Yeah, and it's I went through this thing with lockdown. It's a personal thing I've talked about on the blog, on the post before. I won't talk about it today. But I think we as people often measure ourselves by our failures rather than our successes. But since I've been, you know, because we tend to go, oh, I'm crap at, rather than I'm great at. I don't know whether it's a New Zealand thing or not. It's like when you play a game of golf, if you go, you know, have a great round for 17 holes, and then you do a triple bogey on the 18th, you come off the course going, what a terrible game of golf. Whereas if you have a terrible round of golf and on the 18th you get a hole in one, you're like, oh man, it's the best game of golf I've ever played. We often measure ourselves, we measure ourselves on our failures more so. That was a bad example of the hole in one. But I think that, and I saw it in lockdown, that it was heightened, and in this period where there was a lot of us having failures, whether it was lacking in business, whether it was, you know, fear of what was going, whatever. That last year in particular, we didn't, on a personal level, look at our successes and go, look how well we did in this time of trial. We were still going, I didn't do this well. But since I've been thinking this through, I've also been thinking about society and what we're doing in society. And I think we tend to do that with other people as well. And this kind of relates to the, sportsman loses form. And I try and bring myself into the reality when I hear about, say, a celebrity or a profile person or someone who's done something quote unquote wrong and has got in trouble for it in the media. And I go, if I had a camera on me on my worst day, in my worst moment, what would the country think of me as a person? If I had just lost my job, I had just, my wife had walked out, whatever the situation is, I got stuck in traffic and I lost my rag at the person in front of me. Maybe they happen to be a minority as well, and so all of a sudden I'm a racist bully who's got no class, and filming me or picturing me in my worst moment. And then, of course, in the media, I go, but that doesn't represent who I am. And the whole country goes, well, actually, that does represent who you are, but it might not represent who I am. There might be a backstory to it, which explains more away. And so I've just been thinking about how we measure ourselves and how we measure each other based on our worst. Not always, but often.
Really interesting, yeah. And it's really interesting thinking about the lockdown, because I found it trying. A lot of people really enjoyed it, but I just found that whole lack of certainty, I guess, very difficult. And I had 3 jobs that just went away on day one of the lockdown. So I had that sort of grieving process, and but I didn't sort of go, I got through that and had the kids at home and homeschooling and all that stuff. And, you focus on, well, I'm not doing enough for the kids and I'm not, doing whatever else I should be doing. But that was a unique period that we got through. I don't know. It was amazing, really, looking back. We'll look back on that time in years to come and think, God, imagine that. How did we do that?
I said to my kids last year, I went, when you're 60-something and you've got grandkids or whatever it is, however your lives go, your grandkids will be saying to you, is it true that there was a year in New Zealand where nothing happened and no one went outside? And I'm like, a bit of an exaggeration, but yes.
Oh, it's pretty much, yeah. I know. That's what I said to my kids too. They were 11. They didn't really care. I said, you've got to write a diary about this time. They didn't do that. Neither did I, though, so...
It is interesting to think what did get produced during that. Like you say, diary. In Australia, I think about things like art. And I've been noticing on various streaming platforms like Netflix, there's TV shows popping up like Love in the time of COVID. And that's maybe not high art. But, but people have been doing things in that period in particular, the lockdown period, that are starting to bear fruit now based on what they were going through then. So it's going to be an interesting couple of years to see what comes of that 12 months.
Yeah, I gave myself quite a hard time because I didn't, all those things that everyone else was doing, like decluttering, and I was just feeling so lost that I didn't feel like I couldn't do any of those things. I was very unproductive. But I think you're still productive in a way when you're unproductive. Looking back, I think I needed that time just to be like, I'm just going to sit here and play dumb games on my phone and,
watch Tiger King.
Crap. All stuff. Yeah, just real nothing stuff. You sometimes, I don't know.
I think what goes hand in hand with we measure ourselves on our failures, and we often measure other people on their worst days. I think what also goes is we're hard on ourselves for doing nothing. I know lots of people. I'm not one of them. I find being lazy quite easy, but I know a lot of people who can't not just have a day off. Like if they have a Sunday off, they can't just not do nothing because there's the lawns to mow or the garden to do or whatever. And I think there's actually a skill in being able just to go. I mean, when we go to Fiji, we can do nothing because there's nothing to do. I mean, I haven't been to Fiji with a smartphone because I haven't been for a decade or so, but I imagine you could go there and you could lie by the pool playing games on your smartphone and you'd feel no guilt whatsoever. And so my question is, why would you feel guilt doing that for 3 or 4 hours on a Sunday afternoon if you just wanted downtime? What's the problem with that?
Or even the whole damn day.
Yeah, whatever.
I don't know. Society is sort of, we're getting fed that all the stuff, that We should be. See, I can do nothing, but I will be, in the back of my head, I'll be going, the garden's a mess. So I'm not really enjoying it. So I'm still learning that skill.
Well, the other thing to do is get other people around you. I mean, I'm not going to say it's quite lucky. I've got a bit of a rooted back from my rugby days and stuff. So it's very easy for me to say to someone, I'll pay you to mow my lawns, because I can do it. I can physically do it, but I'm in pain for 24 hours afterwards, sort of thing.
Oh yeah, but if it's not the lawns, it's something else. There is always something to do, isn't there?
Yeah, I haven't quite figured out how to get someone to come in and wash my dishes for me, but it's building. I'll figure that out one day.
Someone you should be seeing, I should be calling that person that I haven't seen. Anyway, we could go on and on feeling bad about ourselves, but we've done bloody well.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't feel bad about it. I mean, if you look at if you're talking about calling people, if you look at my cell phone right now, how many have I got? My kids always yell at me. I've got 279 unanswered text messages and 2,654 unanswered emails. So it's
do you think that? Do you know how many unanswered emails I've got?
12,000.
32,000.
Well, you win.
I so win. People see that, and one of my old bosses at Lotto, every time she picked up my phone and saw that, she was like, "I can't. This is making me anxious, Son. I can't handle it." And she had to go in and actually deactivate the little thing that tells you how many. And I was like, "Why does that bother you?" And she's like, "I can't even have one there."
Wow.
I'm like, well, I just know that none of them are important. They're just things that I'm not unsubscribed to, or it's so long now. It's going to be impossible to delete all those.
Yeah. There you go. There's a fun Sunday activity. Do nothing.
Yeah, well, people keep offering to help. I'm like, it's not, that doesn't bother me.
I've got
to mow the lawn.
You've got 12-year-old twins. Are they 12? 11, 12?
Yeah, they just turned 12.
Just turned 12. I heard a rumor. I'm just thinking about the technology and cell phones and stuff. I've got oh God, what are they? About nearly 12, nearly 15, just 17. And I'm interested. I watched my 15-year-old with the phone, and we were quite not restrictive, but certainly we had some quite tight boundaries around phones until secondary school came along. And one of the things that the 15-year-old noticed is that when her then intermediate school age friends came over with phones, they'd sit on their phones whilst they were in the lounge with them, and she used to get really grumpy about her friends sitting on their phones, playing games whilst we were all watching a movie or something. But of course now she's 15 and she's got her own phone and access to it and all that sort of stuff. Well, nearly 15. She's doing exactly the same thing. So every now and again I just say, hey, remember when you used to be angry about what are you you're doing it now. But I've noticed the whole kind of, the phone goes ding and it's ding, and she can't not answer it.
Yeah.
Which is like the people who have to have their emails cleared. Are you starting to have conversations, thoughts, etc. about your 12-year-olds, technology, phones, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So there's second year of intermediate this year. So last year when they started, we got them phones.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband Simon got them iPhone X's for Christmas.
Wow.
Just because he got some sort of deal. I know. And he thought he was doing a good thing. Got some sort of deal with his phone. I don't know, work. Anyway, they ended up with iPhone X's. Well, one of my twins, so excited, opened it, was like, yeah. The other one burst into tears. And that phone stayed boxed for 6 months because she just was like, oh, people will think I'm a snob with an iPhone X.
Wow.
All the other kids have like their parents' hand-me-downs of 6s, or I don't know, whatever. So isn't it interesting, the different, come July, she unboxed the phone and hasn't looked back. She loves that phone, and it's really difficult, I think, as parents, because especially we have all these, the lockdowns and things, and that's their way of communicating these days.
Yeah.
Through their phones. So, and it's actually wonderful. I don't know how you feel, but it's wonderful to know that, okay, it's Friday. I know my kids always go to McDonald's with their friends on a Friday. They'll text me to let me know if they do anything different. Then if I need to pick them up, whatever, if they didn't have a phone, they don't have that freedom.
Yeah, I think there's a truth to that, more freedom. I do still think, though, when I was 15 at St. Peter's College in central Auckland and I was late to get home because cricket practice went a bit long, I was just late to get home. So I do agree with you. I think it is I think it is. I think it's better to have the communication in those instances. I don't think it's the be all and end all to communication between parents and kids that I think sometimes we, including me, say it is because we all got late home or had to use the phone at school to say to mum that I'm on detention today or whatever it is.
Well, we used to use the public phones.
Yeah, they're gone. Yeah.
They're gone. Yeah. I hear you. For me, I am a bit of a worrywart, and having one of my daughters with special needs, and she really struggled with friends and finding her tribe up until intermediate, really. So it was sort of the phone thing took, should you have the phone? Shouldn't you? How much should you use it? Took a back seat to she's communicating so well with her friends through this device and building friendships that are then, rolling out in school as well. And so it's a little bit different. I do restrict them. I mean, if they could, they'd sit on their phones and just blindly watch YouTube crap and TikTok videos. And, sometimes they talk, they FaceTime with their friends and they're just, one won't even it's just not even a conversation. Like, what are you doing? So they know, I'll be like, okay, enough, off your phones. And they're they get it. And I think they're kind of quite relieved because it is mind numbing.
Yeah, as I said, we're quite tight boundaries around I have another one. I've just bought one recently. Actually, we call it the whānau phone. So I have a spare phone. It's my phone. When my kids were at an intermediate school, they could use it when they needed it. So the school trip happens and they're going to be in town. They take the whānau phone, or go into a sleepover. They take the whānau phone. So it doesn't belong to them. So they have no rights to it.
It doesn't have any of the apps that
none of that. Yeah, none of that. But it means that they can still use it when needed for the communicative thing. Secondary school was when they got the phones, and it's not quite the same now. But for a long time, we were certainly no charging phones in bedrooms was a pretty easy one. We had a station out in the lounge. That's where they charge them. My middle one at the moment is fighting on that one a little bit because she's got AirPods, so she wants to have it close enough so she can listen to stuff as she's going to bed. So we've just adjusted it. We've given her a little station outside, there's a new place. They used to have the old rotary phone in it. We've got a hole in one of our walls. They used to have the rotary phone in it. That happens to be just by her bedroom. So we've put a power point in there, and that's the new charging station. So it can get her AirPods
very innovative.
Well, as they get older, and you're right about the communication, I think everything has an equal and opposite. Yeah. So it's the way they communicate these days. But it's also the way they get bullied. So they have cool access to their friends. They can chat away, but then they also have access to everything else, which can be negative as well. Yeah. So what I'm trying to put into my 15-year-old at the moment is, you don't have to respond when the phone buzzes. In the old days, sounding like a lemon war baby, the phone would ring, you'd pick it up attached to the wall, you'd have a chat, you'd put it down, you'd then talk to that person the next day. It doesn't have to be immediate. Someone can text you, you can get back to them in 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever. It doesn't have to be there and then. Because when it becomes I have to respond immediately. My one talks about, he's left me on unopened. That's the latest thing, Snapchat. He's left me on unopened, which means the person has opened their message but hasn't responded yet, and she's taken offense to that. And I'm like, he's allowed to read it, go off and have dinner, and then come back and respond, he or she, whoever the person is. But they have this thing about, I want it now. I need to do it now.
Or what does this mean? Does this mean he doesn't actually like me or want to be my mate? Or you're reading things into it that aren't.
I know that there was a boy that my 15-year-old was talking to, and I was a little bit like, do you know him in real life? And she said to me the other day, not to tell secrets, she goes, oh, you don't have to worry about that boy anymore. I'm like, oh, why is that? Oh, he left me on unopened for too long. Like, that was the end of their communication. And so that was enough for her to go, oh, he's a dick. So look, I do actually agree with what you're saying about communication, about the way they're communicating, but I'm just I'm cautious to let my ones go for it. Just
Yeah,
go for it.
no, you can't, because
They have
it's
to have the
addictive.
they have to have
Well,
they have to have the skills to use that communication. That's what it is.
yeah, and they also, you just don't want them. My fear is for them to get, like you say, so that they feel weird if they don't have their phone. Like there's actually a private school, which I won't name, in Auckland, that allows kids to have phones at lunchtime, because they say it's good for them to set their own boundaries. But I just think that's ridiculous. Like, kids, so wanting to have lunch, and they can just walk around with their phones. Like, it's really weird.
So you would
I think they're quite relieved that phones are just not a part of school.
Yeah. Well, that means you'd never talk to your mates. You'd just
No.
like I've seen children sitting in the same room texting each other. Like, I've seen it in the same room.
My kids' friends do it here, and the other day they were all over here, and I said, "Phones away. There's no point even being here if you're going to just be on your phones." And they agreed. They were like, "Yeah, let's just talk."
Oh my god! Oh my god! Talk.
Yeah.
What's that all about? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. They're young people are quite fascinating though. My kids are really they're not into sport, which is hard.
Hurts your heart.
It hurts it took me a few years, but I got to, like, as in not just into, hate it. So I was one of those kids that did everything, represented New Zealand in athletics, and so at the first athletics day years ago now, I took the handy cam along because I was like, this is the moment where my girls are just gonna start this race, and the whole school is gonna be like, wow. And they got last and second to last, and that's fine. That would have been fine, but there was no hunger. There was the jog across the line, or the walk across the line, with looking around, and that is what hurt. And it sort of hasn't. Nothing's changed. And just a great example of, just because you birth these children doesn't mean they're your mini-me's, does it? So what they are into is social justice.
All right.
Like LGBTQ rights, Black Lives Matter, just all of them, all the people being able to be authentic to themselves, especially Tandy, one of the twins. And yeah, they're sort of in that kind of alternative-y sort of, so that makes me really proud. And a lot of their time on their phones is kind of researching that, and on little, chats with people about that. And they've taught me a lot about gender and the different, many different categories now, and pronouns and all that sort of stuff.
I find it a really interesting conversation around those sorts of things. And what I try and do, being a former kind of talkback host and fairly opinionated person, is I try and give my kids the both perspectives on an issue that might be a societal conflict at the moment. Like, be it a gender issue, or be it a race issue, or you don't really have conflict on race issues, but gender's certainly one at the moment that there's still debate in society over. And I'll say, well, these guys think this, and these guys think this, and this is why they think this, and this is why they think this, and then just kind of go, now go. So I have great conversations with my older ones as well, have in the past, and continue to do so about that kind of stuff, because it's all just so normal. It's a normal conversation to have. And I was talking to a comedian yesterday, and we talked about not this exact issue, but the idea of that old saying of, if you're not liberal when you're young, you don't have a heart. If you're not conservative when you're older, you don't have a brain. And that's been a kind of belief or a statement for a long time, but it's wrong. What it is rather than saying you have to be conservative when you're old, what it is actually, we are more conservative than every generation after us. So the boomers were more conservative than the Gen Xers. Yeah. So to the Gen Xers, the boomers look conservative. To the Gen Ys, I'm Gen X. Gen Ys, the Gen Xers look conservative, even though I'm very progressive and liberal in my politics sort of thing. But to the Gen Ys, I look like a boomer, like a conservative boomer. And the Gen Zs are going to be more liberal than the millennials, than the Gen Ys. And so it's that there's this sliding scale of, being less liberal or being more conservative than the previous generation is what it is.
True. Yeah. And yeah, I try to say to my girls, because they're quite tough on me for not remembering, a couple of their friends are now non-binary, so that's cool, but I am not always going to remember to say they instead of she.
Yep.
It's really hard for, this is all new to our generation, and it's not going to come as easy, and they get a bit frustrated with me. And Tandy said, it's okay to get it wrong, but you have to correct yourself immediately. And it's like, I am so open, and, this friend could be whatever, but do they want me to have this added pressure? Like, I'll do the best I can, is that what this is about?
There is and this is not a criticism of millennials or Gen Zs, which would be your kids and probably my kids as well, is that there is, and this is what happens as you get younger, an element of militancy with it as well. And that's why I try and have a broad perspective conversation with my kids and say, like one of the things I said the other day about the pronouns, which I don't think many people have heard this point before. I'm not saying I've got a massive insight, but I've said this to a few people, including a gender studies professor, and he went, is the insistence of the pronouns is interesting because you don't use pronouns when you're talking to someone. You use these pronouns when you're talking about someone. Yes. So if someone wants to be a they, fine, that's the case. But what they're actually saying is, you need to talk about me when I'm not here in the way that I want. Because when they're in front of you, like if little Jimmy was a they, you don't go, how are they? You go, how are you?
Yeah.
So the only time you really use they is when you're talking about them, not to them. And I think it's an interesting dynamic, and I don't have necessarily a pro or a con against it, but this is the broad conversation.
But it's just an interesting point that you bring up.
That little Jimmy is saying, when you talk about me when I'm not here, I want to control how you talk about me when I'm not here. It's just an interesting little twist.
Yeah. Well, it's all really boils down to the English language too, because if you're, Japanese and Chinese, and there's no she or he in that language, and so there's no problem. You don't have everyone is just a they or a, oh God, it's been so long now to think about it. But I don't know. It just seems to be constructs that, is it that important, the pronoun? It is obviously, or it wouldn't be made a big deal of, but I don't know.
But that point about these pronouns that are being picked, fine, you can call it whatever you want. I don't give a crap, fine, and I'll respect what you want to do. But it's got nothing to do with an interpersonal relationship. It's not a first person relationship. It's a second or third person relationship. It's when you're talking about people. I think that's really interesting. And you're right, it's about the English language, because I know in America at the moment there is the Latino community have obviously Latino and Latina for male and female. There is a group of particular people who are trying to get Latinx as a part of the vernacular, meaning non-binary.
Yeah, I wondered what that was.
And the Latino community have gone, no. And they're just outright, like, if you're within the community, they've basically said no to it. And it's people outside the community who are trying to build the Latinx word. So it's not that every change in society starts with a revolution, and good changes and good revolutions turn to good new societies. This may be this probably is this, I don't know, we'll see in the future, but I like having a broad conversation about it and thinking all the issues through rather than going, that's definitely what we're going to do from now.
Yeah, and I wonder who it is that decides these things too, because it seems to me that they've, it was interesting that the Latino community said no to the Latinx, but often it's, how do these things become law? Well, that's one of the problems, I think, with this conversation, is trying to bring in laws about it. That's not how society works. We choose as a society to make a word mean what it means. Like the word gay, for example, not because we're talking about LGBT issues, but because it was the first one that came to mind. In the 1930s, it meant happy. Then society has decided, no one went, right, from this day forward, this is going to mean something different. But it's evolved, and all of society has chosen and agreed to take it on board. That's how words change. Words don't change from people saying, from now on, you must say this. And that's where I think the conflict sometimes comes up with this particular conversation. Yeah, and it also seems to be changing so quickly. that it's like, whoa, I just can't keep up. But look, the positive about all this is that our kids are able to not necessarily be in this box. There's other boxes. Hopefully there's not too many boxes to choose from, but that is about, in the end, being able to express themselves and be true to who they feel they are.
Yeah, and you think about what you rallied against your parents and the different positions you had and they had for their parents, once Elvis Presley came along, and the difference that music made to the generation before. It's every generation. So I see nothing but positivity from this, from the way kids are thinking these days. What's going to be interesting is what that leads to in society, because it could be positive, and I hope it is, and I suspect it will be, but we're not there yet. So it could also have detrimental impact. That's what has to wait and see.
Yeah. But at least I think for my kids they're great readers. My kids, they're always reading. Not into sport. There's a lot of stuff they're not into. So just the fact that they're passionate about this is exciting for me.
Totally.
And about all the, I just think
it's also
to care about how, people's rights and feelings and
Well, that's the basis of it. The basis of is caring for this community, looking after this community, even if you're not a part of it, and wanting this community to be treated well. I think that's admirable, and who wouldn't support that? And there's also that adage that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And these guys are standing for this at the moment. So.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I know we've got to fly, but before we...
No, fine. We just keep talking. I'll tell you when I need to go.
Okay, well, look, I just thought I'd wrap up with you anyway, because we said about this time. Because I did want to ask you one question, and I kind of I told you about this question before we started, which was I've been into TVNZ a lot. I've done some work and stuff in there as well, and I've seen the wardrobe in there, and often you see, for example, a female presenter or newsreader or journalist, swapping jackets. You see it on one show one night and then on another show 6 weeks later, and that
shouldn't actually happen.
Really?
You've spotted something. No, often they'll go in and they'll be like, oh my God, I've got to do the stand up. One of the reporters, and they'll just grab a jacket from Wendy's closet or from, but they're not meant to. So does that mean similar, but they're meant to have their own quite unique. Yeah.
So all of Hillary's clothes should remain.
Hillary's clothes,
Because what I was, that refutes my question. I was going to ask you about this kind of thing. I think
that is interesting, because I'm a bit different, because I have a stylist and she borrows clothes for me. So mainly there is a stock that she gets some from, but it's just worked out that way that we have certain designers, and so I have different clothes every time, which is awesome because I get to wear all the latest stuff. But that dress is from TVNZ, from the wardrobe. So Hillary could have worn that in the past. I think worn that dress. There's probably a 20-odd flash dresses that are wheeled out and then pinned in where they need to be for the right occasion, because that sort of thing's hard to borrow.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, because that's what I was going to say is, I don't think you'd ever see this on 7 Sharp if you guys swap things around.
You might see Hillary wearing that to the awards.
Gotcha. Oh, well, here's a question then. Maybe this is a bit inappropriate. Is that one of the reasons as well why, for example, maybe more so on the female presenters and the male presenters, everyone's sort of a similar size? Is it because of the clothes being swapped around thing? Like you don't like...
When you get employed, they're like, do you fit? No, they're not the same size. Well, they might look it on TV.
I know you did some writing in 2016 about diversity and that, and I thought, I never see anyone who looks like me kind of on television either. And I'm not saying that the diversity question is not 100% valid, but it's rare.
Oh, it should be diversity. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And I was just wondering, often people on telly are a certain size and shape, and they're often attractive and that kind of stuff. But that's more of a byproduct than a designer, you're saying.
Oh yeah, they wouldn't say you need to fit. Oh no, because they get a wardrobe, or the news ones get a wardrobe bought for them when they start, and then there's more, So you have everywhere. Anyone like Jenny Sewell would be a size 6. She's so little, and then there's they'd probably go up to a 14. So it's a good. But you're right. I think there is a lack of diversity in body shapes in TV, which hopefully will change as everything else is changing. I mean, we've come a long way, really.
Everyone will just turn into independent media like this and just do your own thing. That's the best fun.
from your lounge or where are you? What are you sitting in?
This is my studio. I built this downstairs. I can
Oh, you're downstairs, okay.
Yeah, downstairs in my house. I've got another. I could have shown you, but the other camera's not. I had my puppy on underneath my desk last night, so I set up one of the other cameras down here, pointing under my desk. I had puppy cam for the podcast yesterday. So
you
yeah, this
Dunedin.
yeah, this is my studio in my house, which was in
I didn't know that.
which was in central Dunedin in a shared office space. But when COVID hit, I brought everything home and built a wall in my downstairs rumpus room, and this is all soundproofing, treated over here, this sort of stuff. So yeah, so this is so now I get to have breakfast and walk downstairs and work, which is great fun. Love it.
Not just a pretty face, eh?
Not even a pretty face.
I wish I'd known, because I've just been in Dunedin for 3 weeks.
You should have come by.
I've got to come over. I love Dunedin. I'm a convert.
Yeah.
I wandered around because I was filming down there, but I had quite a few days off, so I just sort of wandered around and went for runs to St Clair, and I was like, this is kind of cool.
I reckon, if I can predict, you probably like Melbourne and you probably like Wellington.
Yeah, I'm from Wellington, and I do like Melbourne.
Dunedin's the trifecta in the triangle. All of them are pretty much similar, but just economies of scale.
I was saying, when someone was asking about it, I was like, it's sort of like Melbourne, but not as cool. but it just, I just had a nice, I just loved to be able to walk everywhere, and great little op shops and clothes shops.
Well, the thing that we've got going on here that works well for Dunedin, to do a little advert, is that because of primarily of the university, that brings in $1 billion a year to the economy. So we're overrepresented in resources for the students that the rest of us get to benefit from.
Right.
So the reason you've got all that activity and stuff in central Dunedin, and yes, some of the, I'll call them the slum pubs, the pubs that were out in the, the student areas have shut down, which is, I think, a little bit sad. But because the students demand, the places they want to go and spend their money, then they're here, so the rest of us can get the benefit from them. So if anyone ever in Dunedin speaks ill of the students and stuff, it's like, dude, if we didn't have the students, this would be. I lived in Tauranga for a little while, so I can say this, but this would be Tauranga, which is kind of this would be Tauranga without the mount, which means ugh, So we're overrepresented in resource thanks to the students, and that's one of the reasons that it's so lovely.
Yeah, I mean, I had some lovely weather down there, but then there were a couple of days that were really cold, and I was like, oh yeah, this would be interesting. But then I'm from Wellington, so you know.
We don't have the wind like Wellington. I mean, it is colder. I moved here from Auckland 7-ish years ago, and people said to me, oh, it's going to be cold. And I said to them, so what are you paying rent this week? And they were like, $600. And I went, okay, well, I'll take your first week's rent from the first week of the year. I'll buy a fucking puffer jacket, and then I'll be all right. Then I'll be all right for the rest of the year. And that shut them up pretty quickly, so.
Yeah. And not to mention the 2 hours a day you spend in traffic up here. Take that and...
Yeah, and
watch my TV.
Queenstown's 3.5, 4 hours away. Christchurch 3.5, 4 hours away. It's just very... I mean, I've spent 40 years in Auckland, so I'm, through and through Aucklander from there. So know it like the back of my hand. And I would happily move back to Auckland for the right opportunity, but I have no desire to move back to Auckland. I love it down here. It's not like I want to be back in that city. Yeah.
I love it. I don't mind Auckland, but I just find that I've lots of friends here, but I only really see the ones that are just 10 minutes that way, 2 minutes that way. Otherwise, it just feels too hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I see them all, but it's more of an effort, and I hate that. I like the idea that you can just, it sort of reminds me of living in London, and you only kind of saw the people that were on the same tube line as you.
Yeah, for sure.
If you were on Bakerloo and they were on Bakerloo, you're like, it's easy, but if you had to change, you're like, ugh. So you didn't see Sharon or Betty or David because they were on the central line.
Yeah.
I didn't have a friend.
Oh, look, and I think as well, unfortunately for some down here, the property markets are doing what they're doing around the country. When I moved here 6.5 years ago, we bought our house for $230,000. I think that same house sold in the last 6 months for about 500, 550, which is still cheap compared to Auckland. But you know, it's getting to that point again for first home buyers down here that a 20% deposit on a $500,000 house is still $100,000. It's pretty hard to save. Whereas it's impossible. It's impossible to save in Auckland. It's become a lot harder to save in Dunedin. They've seen the same sort of increases percentage-wise as the rest of the country. So so it's become less affordable, although it's still much more affordable than Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch.
Yeah, and it's got its own little thing going on, which I just sort of thought it was don't get me wrong, and I've got relatives and that's where my granddad's family's from, but I just kind of thought of it as a sort of an extra place, just a place that just kind of would be Auckland or Wellington if it could be. But it's terrible that I'm saying that to you. But it was so cool. I mean, even one Saturday I was sort of wandered down to have a look in the shops, and then there was this Highland band playing, and all the students, graduation students, were walking up the street, and I was like, this would not happen in any other city. Shut the streets down, and it was awesome. Well,
it's also because I lived in out by Titirangi when I was last in Auckland. Lived in that sort of area for 15 years. And we would go to West Auckland to do all our stuff. We'd go to New Lynn, or we'd go to the end of the Western Motorway, and so we sort of were isolated to that area. We wouldn't spend a lot of time on the shore or out east or down south, or even in central, really, because everything was out west. Whereas in the smaller cities, Dunedin being one of them, there isn't a Westfield shopping town on the other side of the thing. There is the main street and the Octagon. Yes, there's South Dunedin, which has got more industrial area, but really there's only one place to come, because it's like this is, Papakuta, which has got its own centre, probably 100,000 people in Papakuta and that whole region. That's the same, but that's Dunedin. 135,000 people, all goes into the city. So that's where everything happens. It's great.
Yeah. No, I loved that. It was just felt like a, real community sort of, something's happening in town.
Yeah.
Everyone knows, it's cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Well, next time you're down, you should swing by and come and have
I shall. I don't know when it'll be, but hopefully.
I'll open up the studio fridge for you and get a beer out.
Oh, I was wondering what that was. I was like, is that it almost looks like it's your dryer. Like, you couldn't fit the dryer upstairs. Oh, the fridge.
No, it's my fridge in my studio. We're set up. This is because the first 75 of these podcasts were all face to face, and we'd have a beer, and like I had a drink while we were doing this here, and we would just chill out. And then since COVID, we've done 100 of these, and probably only 10 of them have been face to face. But this is I still have a drink, even if other people aren't here to have one with me.
Even now that it's 11 o'clock.
I had a Phoenix, so it was a
non-alcoholic.
Later on tonight, I might get out these guys. So these are give them a bit of a plug. The sponsored guys. Get one of these out maybe later.
Oh no, I can't see that very clearly. So you're going to have to tell me that.
Behemoth, the brewing company, hazy pale ale, brain smiles. That's what I've got. A carton of this sitting here.
Can you get that in Auckland?
Yeah. Behemoth is based in Auckland. In fact, if they've got their, the Target at the end of Dominion Road and by the city.
Oh yeah, I'm just off to the road. Yeah.
Their brewery is just behind that in Charles Street. I think it's 1A Charles Street. And they've got a big restaurant and stuff there as well. And yeah.
No way.
Yeah, it feels like I'm doing an advert now, but I know all the details. They've done 200.
No, I'm genuinely interested, and I'm going to go there.
Well, these guys, Andrew Trial started it up as a craft beer. And since they've been going, they've made over 270 beers. They make a lot of smaller batches. So they're kind of like a commercial, this is how I describe them though, so I'm paraphrasing, a commercial size craft beer group. And what they've done is they've got their brewery now in Charles Street, end of Dominion Road behind Target. And it's a restaurant and the brewery, it's called Churley's, Churlys, who's the little character, the little monster character that they have. His name's Churley. So churleys.co.nz is the website. Churley's Pub is I think what they call it, but it's the brewery where they brew all their beer. And so because they've brewed so many of these draft beers, they They do small ranges and short runs and all sorts of stuff. They're wicked. I love them. I love working with them. I hope we have a long and fruitful career together.
Lovely. Well, I'm going to go down and I will say hello from you.
Yeah. Tell them Pat sent you from the Department of Conversation. That might help when we have to renew our contracts.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hey, Sonia, it's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean. This could go on a lot longer. The time just flies.
Yeah, I know, and I've been trying to get. I know we're going to get out a bit earlier, but thank you for being gracious and just hanging for a bit more because you could.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fun and fine.
And next time you're in and around Dunedin or whatever, we'll set aside a bit more time, have a few beers, have a bit more of a chat.
Yeah, sounds lovely.
Solve some more of the world's problems.
Oh God, we'd need a weekend for that.
We can do that.
We could telethon. We could do a telethon podcast, saving the world's problems.
This weekend, what's Lotto worth? Do you know?
Oh shoot, I'm not on Saturday because it's my birthday, so I've got it off. It was my birthday on Sunday, but I think it's 6 million. I always get a ticket regardless.
I was wondering about that.
Seven.
I remember Oprah Winfrey telling a story about. I consider you very much the Oprah Winfrey of New Zealand, Sonia. I remember her telling a story about in her first broadcasting career. I think she was a newsreader. She gave away in a giveaway prize something like 5 years worth of her salary, and she kind of references that to now being worth billions of dollars. But it must be kind of nice and a bit weird giving away millions of dollars all the time.
Yeah, especially when you never win. The most I've won is $56, and I've played for well over 20 years.
Wow.
So, over 20 years, same numbers, just unlucky.
Wow.
Really, I reckon I'm the unluckiest player.
If you won,
you'd know about it.
That would be couldn't that be controversial? Honestly, if you won.
Yeah, it wouldn't be great PR. Wouldn't be the best thing to happen, but they can't. Anyone can buy a ticket, obviously, because if you said, Sonia, you work for Lotto, you can't buy a ticket, it would be like saying it's possible to rig it, which it's not, because there are so many checks and balances and contingencies in place. So even the audit guys and the scrutineers can buy a ticket. That would, and I know my numbers back to front. So there was a time last year, 3 of my numbers came out on one line first. And I actually went to that place in my head. So I was there, standing there live, and I didn't say anything, but I just felt this cold sweat come over me. And I said to myself, this is actually fucking happening. I really thought it was like, and then the next 3 numbers weren't mine. But if it had been, I wouldn't have been able to disguise why.
Hey, have you got, I want to show you something. Have you got another 2 minutes?
Yeah.
So this is a news host winning a lottery whilst they're live on air drawing the lottery. So it has happened.
So Jay, are we ready from KNV Accountants? Let's do the draw here. Oh.
I won't play the whole thing through.
Thank you.
People who are listening.
Going to have a good day today.
Yeah, I think so.
You've come and have a look at the video.
It's going to be. And the winner is.
Okay, the winning ticket number is 4263642, and that's Barry Delaney of Port Moody, BC.
Congratulations.
So they've announced the winner.
We're going to give you a call right now. And Soph and Squire, I'll throw it back to you guys.
And
Barry Delaney, not Barry DeLay.
No. Actually, and let's just take one more look. I think it's Barry Deli, I think. Deli?
Barry Deli.
Deli.
Yeah.
That's even closer. How's it spelled?
Deley.
That's Barry.
No, it's not.
Where's the okay, seriously, where's the person live?
Port Moody.
Barry DeLay lives in Port Moody.
We'll look into it. We're going to call right now.
Hold it a second. What did he win? He won a $2 million house. Give me the phone.
How much?
A $2 million house. So there you go. People can find that for themselves. So that was one of their colleagues in the draw, just live on air, won a $2 million house.
Awesome.
So it can happen. So maybe you're up for this weekend.
It can happen. I'm just, Hey, you know what? If it doesn't happen, I love my job, and I've had 16 great years so far, almost, doing Lotto. So I think I've won anyway.
Yeah. Beautiful. Hey, Sonia, thanks so much for joining us, mate. We'll talk again sometime, and it's been a pleasure.
Yes, love that. I love that. All right, you take care. Have a beautiful weekend. Kia pai tō rā whakatā.